Awesome. All right, well, thanks everyone for joining in. We're going to give it a few minutes here before getting started, just to give the other attendees a few more minutes to join in. Hope you all are doing well. All right. So thank you all for taking the time to join Rentley's webinar on retrofitting for intercom and access control systems. My name is Brian Post. I'm a senior account executive here at Rentley, specializing in both access control and smart home. I'm joined by my colleague Porter Browning, product quality engineer. He's really just the technical expert here at Rentley with regard to access control and retrofits.
Hey everyone, I've been part of Rentley, working on our access control systems from design and testing to passing the unit ready for sale. So I have hardware and software knowledge regarding this product.
Thanks, Porter. Not sure how much you all know about Rentley. A lot of people, they hear the name Rentley and they think of that big orange lockbox and self-touring. That's really how we made a name for ourselves. We were founded back in 2011, where we patented and pioneered self-guided touring. Fast forward to 2015, we then tapped into in-unit smart home devices such as smart thermostats, locks, doorbells, and then most recently, we then tapped into controlled access space and launched both the intercom and access panel for amenities. So the focus of today's call is going to be on retrofitting. Retrofitting refers to the process of installing a modern digital access system to an existing older building using minimal construction. There's two main aspects of retrofitting. One being upgrading your legacy hardware, such as an existing old school key and deadbolt setup, or maybe you're looking to upgrade your older access control system, like a call box or a keypad, a physical punch keypad, using existing infrastructure, which we'll then be able to speak to further on another slide here. All right, so there's several reasons why you may want to consider upgrading existing access control at your community. First and most importantly, it provides your community with much stronger security. By preventing copied keys or community codes from getting into the wrong hands, and also ensuring entry points remain locked or unlocked during specific hours set by your staff. Improving your system will modernize access and enhance convenience for residents. Based on our recent apartment trend survey, over half of renters expect smart home and smart access control at their community. So like for instance, by rolling out modern access control, I'm sure your residents will love being able to now unlock doors from their smartphone as they're walking up to the front entrance rather than having to reach in their pocket and find the right key to get in. By upgrading your access control system, you'll be simplifying access management for your staff, residents, and visitors, where each resident will have their own designated access code, and residents and staff members will also have the ability to create one-time durational guest codes for visitors. You'll also be able to get real-time activity logs to view timestamps of when residents or visitors enter access points. And lastly, we're going to be saving your communities thousands of dollars on not having to rekey, because as you know, residents can be clumsy and forget their keys, lose them quite often. So this is going to help you go completely keyless if you decide that you don't want a fob. All right, so just wanted to open up the floor real quick and take a poll. Curious of all the attendees in here, what kind of access control system do you all currently use today? Is it a traditional lock and key at your community? Is it an intercom system and door release, like a Door King call box, latch, Brevo? Fob readers and keypads, like a Butterfly or LiftMaster, or other? I'll go ahead and let you guys have a couple seconds here to respond to that poll. Looks like we have one who has a traditional lock and key. Fob readers or keypads, I'd say, is the most common retrofit that we see here at Rentley. Go ahead and give it a couple more seconds for everyone to vote. All right, fantastic. Yeah, so from what I've experienced, it seems like a majority of folks who are looking to make the switch over to a modern access control system are either coming from an older building that they're looking to make upgrades to that have that traditional lock and key, or maybe they have a building who 15, 20 years ago upgraded to more of like a legacy access control system and call box that has simply stopped working. So those are some of the reasons why we've seen folks make the switch over or start looking into upgrading their access control system. So now I'm going to pass it over to Porter. Oops. Porter, I'll let you take it away from here.
All right, so key considerations when looking to retrofit or modernize your current solution. First and foremost is electrical and network infrastructure. What do you have currently? If you're adding something new for the first time, you're going to be making sure we can budget and run conduit to the locations for every access control unit. If this is currently existing, do we have the correct wires for what's needed for a modernized update? Where are we centralizing power? Is this something we're going to have power at each individual location, or do you have a centralized location on site where we can run all conduit back to? And then looking at the installation areas, what type of doors are we installing on? Is it a gate? Is it something like a post outside for a parking gate? Or we have to drill through brick, cut through metal? Are we mounting on wood? What type of door? Is it a glass door where we have to position the panel in a certain way, use magnetic locks? Adding this to your budget increases the time, increases the installation. What type of locks are we going to be using? Strike locks, you currently have this on site. Are we adding something new? These are all considerations to take note at when you're planning to modernize and upgrade. So if you want to take a look at a simplified installation, on the left we have our outside view. You have your door on your left and the Rentley access control panel here on the right on the outside. And as you can see, it's going to require wiring up to a localized power supply. That same power supply is going to need to make sure it's being run to a magnetic lock or a strike lock, as you can see on the right. Now we also need to make sure you can run wiring for contact sensors, make sure you can run correct wiring through the walls for something like a push to exit button if you don't have a crash bar or a way to exit the location. So these are all things to keep in mind when you're planning to upgrade or modernize your current solution.
Awesome. Now let's look at a couple photos of some retrofits that we've done here in the past.
So here on the left, you can kind of see they had a pre-existing keypad. They already had a cutout and a mounting system. So we were able just to completely modernize that by adding the Rentley access control solution with all our features by simply just cutting out into that frame and utilizing all the pre-existing conduit and the current system that they had set up there. You can go to the next picture, I believe. So something like this was a little bit more intensive. This required running conduit through the building wall, cutting out through brick, and making sure we could have access to all the wires needed. And as you can see, the completed process on the right. So these are things to keep in mind. Where are we placing the ability to, where are your common areas going to be? So we need to make sure that you keep in mind some work is more intensive than others. And just a solution here, this was a parking entrance that they wanted to add our solution to. So wiring here is actually located in a centralized location on site, and they had to run conduit, as you can see, underground and through the pole. So we were able to modernize that and add our Rentley access control panel here.
Fantastic. Thanks, Porter. All right, so next we'll go into some key logistics that you should consider when retrofitting a controlled access system at your community. First thing that you're going to want to ask yourself is, who's doing the installation? Do I have a local technician or electrician who's capable of installing and dealing with low voltage wiring, running conduit, etc.? Or would you prefer to have a facilitated installation by the provider's trusted experts? In the instance of Rentley here, we have our own team of installers who can travel across the country, do site walks, verify that you have all of the necessary equipment, electric strikes, magnetic locks, power supply controllers, power nearby, etc., and then come back out and actually facilitate the installation themselves. Another consideration, do you have all the necessary equipment to facilitate a seamless installation? So as I mentioned, you're going to need, depending on the access controller, you're going to need a power supply. You'll need a magnetic lock or electric strike on the door. Do you have those existing? Do you have an existing fob system that this will be a simple rip and replace for? Or is it a traditional lock and key where we'll actually have to draw power and run wiring? And then also, does your current access panel require a hub or power over Ethernet? How is it connected? We'll be able to get to the specifics of Rentley's access panel and our connection in a later slide here. Also, have you budgeted for this project and taken into consideration the expenses associated with running conduit, punching through walls if necessary, and sourcing additional hardware required, as I mentioned? And then lastly, you might want to communicate with both your staff and residents on the timeline of installation so that they are aware. Fortunately, with Rentley, the installation is minimally invasive. It takes a few hours per entry point, depending on the setup. But it is definitely something that you want to communicate to your residents so they're aware that, hey, this specific entry point may be down for a couple hours out of the day. All right, Porter, I'll pass it over to you.
Also looking at compliance and security per location. Communities sometimes have different safety codes required, different settings that need to be set. You need to keep in mind that maybe some community can use a fail-safe or fail-secure setup. Making sure your electrical is being run correctly by a professional. You're looking at environmental factors and location. Is the device you're retrofitting to IP rated? Is this made for something that can withstand the outdoors? Are you making sure your power supply is located in a safe area? Just additional things that you need to keep in mind when retrofitting.
Awesome. All right. So lastly, I'd like to introduce to you all Rentley's V4 access panel with intercom here on the left, and our V5 access panel Pro for amenities. We had just announced this V5 access panel Pro back in our summit in September. Very excited to now offer just a strictly amenity panel. Now, both panels will have the ability to connect to both Wi-Fi and Ethernet, like other access panels. But what makes our product stand out is the fact that we have a built-in cellular super SIM, allowing our panels to connect to AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon. So essentially, whichever service is strongest in the area, it'll automatically connect to that service to ensure that the panel is always connected. You could have it connected to Wi-Fi, and maybe Wi-Fi is strongest. It has something called a dead man switch, where if the Wi-Fi goes down, it'll then automatically switch over to cellular or Ethernet to ensure that you're always going to be connected and residents can always get in through that entry point. Now, with that built-in SIM, no smart hub is going to be required on the back end, which means that it's one less piece of hardware, one less capital cost, and one fewer headache when handling the installation. Rentley's panels allow for 3 different modes of access. First being fob access. However, here at Rentley, we do put a huge emphasis on going keyless. As you know, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, residents are going to lose keys. They'll lose fobs. You're going to have to pay to refob. It can be costly. So instead of issuing fobs out to all your residents, instead you can provide them with a dedicated code, which they can then customize within their resident app. And within that same resident app, they have the ability to issue out guest codes. They can also unlock their doors using that app on their phone as well. Okay. As I mentioned at the beginning of the call as well, we founded self-touring back in 2011, and our self-touring platform integrates seamlessly with our access panels. So for instance, if you decided to turn on self-touring at your community, it'll allow prospective renters to tour communities completely on their own without the need for a leasing agent, and by using one-time durational codes to access building and amenity spaces during their self-guided tour. Rentley is a software company at its core. Of our 500 or so employees, about 300 of which are software engineers. So with that, we do put a lot of attention to detail and emphasis in making our management portal as user-friendly and intuitive as possible. This management portal will provide your staff with detailed access logs that'll show the comings and goings of residents at specific times, along with a log of visitors and all of their corresponding selfies taken when using the intercom. Okay.
And just a note on the Rentley Access Panel, the IP65 rating and UL 294 are industry standard certifications that both our devices have passed. So when you're looking at retrofitting and perhaps you're putting something outside a door that's going to get, or outside by a gate that's going to get wet frequently, both of these certifications certify that our Rentley Access Panel is up to par.
Awesome. I do want to take a step back to this previous slide here and focus a little bit more on the installation. Porter, would you be able to speak to it all how the self-install would work using our user manuals versus a facilitated installation, and maybe the steps required in ensuring a seamless install?
Sure. If you're doing something like a self-install, you're going to be obviously have your own team, right? So you're going to be managing your electricians. You're going to maybe have someone who's never seen our device for the first time. They're going to be learning how to mount everything. You're going to be managing who's going to be drilling out the wall, who's going to be able to. It's going to be micromanaging a lot. So sometimes self-installs require a little bit more of a learning curve when they're installing something new. Whereas something like a facilitated install where you have Rentley certified installers come to your location, be able to know what they're installing, know what the control and setup needs when looking at the conduit needs to be run, what options are available at the site, and they can tell you which ones would be better. Like, you probably should run Ethernet to this location because you have no cell service in this location, or Wi-Fi will be your better setup. So it's when you're doing facilitated over self-install, I would say that facilitated installation is for a smoother experience.
Yeah, like Porter said, we obviously want to ensure that our panels get set up properly. We do find that sometimes if the client's doing a self-install, they might have forgot a key step. So by sending our installer out there to first do a site walk, verify that all of the entry points have power nearby, have the necessary equipment, and help even provide recommendations to help source the electric strikes, magnetic locks, to ensure that then on the installation date, all of the necessary hardware is at the community, to then make sure that everything gets installed in a timely fashion. That's why we see a lot of our clients leaning towards that facilitated install and going with trusted provider who has plenty of experience in installing a product like this. One thing that is important to note as well with Rentley is that there is a 30-day guarantee post-installation. If there were any issues at all with the install, we'll go ahead and send our installer back out there to fix it. There's going to be a lifetime warranty on the access panel itself. So if anything happens to the access panel, one of the buttons malfunctions, for instance, we can go ahead and replace that completely for free as well. So with that said, I know that we just covered a lot of information on a topic that maybe a few of you are not very familiar with. So just want to go ahead and open this up for questions. Is there anything that Porter or myself can answer for you all before we wrap up the webinar? All right, well, assuming that there are no questions, I'd like to believe that Porter and I did an excellent job of explaining everything, so that's likely why. But if you do have any questions, or if you would like to schedule some additional time to do a deeper dive into Rentley Access Control, Smart Home, or even our self-touring platform, happy to help out. Always happy to be a resource. Feel free to just take a screenshot of this page here. My email is brian.post@rentley.com. You can also call me at any time. My number is 619-914-2811. And it looks like we might have a question. Sam, I'm sorry, I don't see where that question would display. If you want to copy paste it over to me. What's your question? Auto gate access. Yes. So going back to this photo here, this is an example of an access panel that we set up at a vehicle gate. Porter, can you kind of go into the details of how it connects to those vehicle gates?
Sure. So we have, you don't see in this picture, but there is a motor pre-installed here. So there is a pre-existing system. We simply just replaced the panel here, and we wired directly into the power supply and then into the gate controller at the location. And so the same thing, whenever they're using a fob, a key, or wireless unlock, because it's wired directly into the controller, it will control the gate. You can also add passage mode to leave gates open and shut, but it's directly wired to the gate motor itself.
Yeah, and if you have residents that don't want to have to lean out of their vehicle to put their code in, or tap their fob to the access panel, they can just take their phone out again and press a button on their phone. That'll go ahead and open up that gate for them. One thing that we go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. When we do integrate with things like RFID readers as well for gates and control systems like that. So if you wanted something a little bit more passive for controlling while still having an access control unit there, we do integrate with RFID readers.
Mm-hmm. And most recently, we have partnered with Uniview, which is a security camera company. We do also offer a license plate reader as well that can communicate with our access panel. Based on the license plate, will trigger the panel to unlock the gate. All right. Any other questions? Wondering about looking up residents. So I may need you to elaborate a bit more on this question, but I have an idea of what you may be asking. So we integrate with most property management software like AppFolio and Trada. So we can pull in residents' information, specifically their lease move-in and move-out date. So when they move in, they'll be automatically receiving an email and a text providing them with the code to get into the building. And then on the intercom side, you can go ahead and create a directory that will show the list of names of residents within your community if you want to display those names. I know for privacy reasons, some communities would prefer to just leave out those names and have the unit number instead. that's definitely an option as well. Hopefully that answered your question. Also, when the lease is over and the tenant moves out, with Rentley's system, we'll be able to automatically deactivate their access code. So I know that with other more legacy hardware, there's one one code that's shared amongst the community. And when that resident moves out, what's to prevent him from coming back to that community and using that same code to get back in? That would not be the case with Rentley, as those codes get deactivated. And yeah, cool. I know that we have a few more minutes here, so any final questions, feel free to fire them away. Otherwise, I'll pull up my screen here and you guys can email them. Porter, anything you'd like to add?
I think there's one question. Looks like it's discussing customizing resident names. This is something that you can adjust in the Rentley Smart Home portal itself. If someone's asking if the resident, after accepting the invite, and then they decided they wanted to change their name, so it like afterwards, after the invite, so it appears differently on the intercom, you'd have to speak with your property manager just to make sure that the resident asset name needs to be changed. A resident can't just freely change their name on the intercom that way.
Yeah, so they'd make the request to the management staff, who would then go into the management portal and locate the resident, and they can adjust that name however they'd like, and then have that be reflected on the intercom. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, there is a lot more that I could show. I know that we're kind of at time here, and did want to focus the webinar on retrofitting as a whole. But again, if there is interest, I'd be happy to show you what the visitor experience looks like, from scanning that QR code to pulling the directory up to calling the resident, taking the selfie. Happy to walk you through that, as well as the back end of Rentley, the management portal, and what you'd have access to. So obviously we have the holidays coming up, but if there is any interest in scheduling one of those calls this week or next before the holidays, or even after, again, just screenshot this page. Feel free to reach out to myself or Porter. And yeah, assuming that there's no further questions, I think we can go ahead and wrap up this webinar. Thank you all for joining, and wishing you all happy holidays and happy New Year.